There are something like 6,000 or 7,000 languages in the world, and they're dying out at a prodigious rate. By one estimate, half of them may be extinct by the middle of this century. And what really caught my attention and fired my interest in this project was that I stumbled across a website called omniglot.com, which had all of the world's writing systems. And by writing systems, I mean some are alphabets, some are syllabaries, which means that a single character stands for a syllable. Some are consonant alphabets or abjads, but we call them alphabets just to kind of a shorthand version. When I saw these, I was struck by several things. One was how remarkably strange or beautiful or interesting many of them were. And the other thing was that there are relatively few. In all the world, there are only about 100 alphabets. And of those 100, fully a third of them are endangered. In other words, they're not taught in schools, they're not being used for government or official purposes, they're on the way out. And I didn't really understand what the implications of that were for a while. We'll come back to that in a minute. But what I did decide to do was I thought I would carve some of these as a way of preserving them and also as a way of drawing attention to this particular issue. But it turned out that there was actually much more interesting stuff going on, and the hard part was not the carving or the painting. The hard part was actually getting the text to carve and paint. So this is a text from the Philippines in a language and a script called Hanunu. I took this from a PDF which was sent to me by an anthropologist. God bless the Australian anthropologists. That's where I get most of my work from. And so I looked at this and I did my best to copy it. And I knew that it should be on bamboo. And bamboo doesn't grow very tall in Vermont. And in fact, the only bamboo that I could get was this kind of stuff, which is in fact from a flooring company. This is actually a stair riser. But I thought, well, you know, I'm doing my best. What can I do? And so I took this text that I had been sent and I carved it. And it was only when I was doing these decorations on the end, which are repeating decorations, that I sort of went, it's supposed to be a cylinder. It's actually a section of a large bamboo plant. And sure enough, it may have been used as a drinking vessel originally. And so the writing then, therefore, is incised with the point of a knife into this cylindrical shaped bamboo, which is pretty dangerous and pretty difficult to do. It also means that writing and function are combined, because this is a poem. It's a lament, in fact. But the fact that I've carved it, which of course gives it the look of authenticity, of authority, of permanence, etc., is really misleading, because as soon as an alphabet becomes endangered and is no longer taught in schools, then you don't have an authoritative version, you don't have consistency. And in fact, one of the things that happened after I carved this was that, feeling very proud of myself, I took a photograph and I sent it back to the anthropologist, who said, I'll check with the elder in the village. And the elder in the village said, oh no, it's not like that, it's like this. There are certain letters that are different. Handwriting is one of the most democratic of art forms. It's really extraordinary because on the one hand, there has to be enough universality that if we all write the letter A, we all recognize it as the letter A. But the fact is, all of us write the letter A slightly differently, and we even write it differently in different moods or at different times in our life or during the day. And so you have this extraordinary blend of something that is functional and universal and something that is self-expressive and even poetic or artistic, all put together in something that's used every day, namely written language. So I decided to do another of these Philippine scripts, and so I got myself another piece of bamboo from the flooring company. And And it turns out that this particular script, which as you'll see I've tried to copy out here from a book, an anthropology text. So I've tried to copy it out so that all the letters are roughly the same size and everything. But it turns out that in creating this authoritative book, the anthropologist made some mistakes. There are actually two versions of this script, one of which is very square and one of which is much rounder. And it's the square one that's usually used, but I'm using a round pointed gouge, so it's much easier for me to do round letters. And so I thought I'll carve using the round script. But again, there's the question, does this letter actually look like this, or does it look like something different? If there are only a dozen people left who write this, and they're in a couple of different villages, you can pretty much guarantee they're going to write it differently. And also they're going to argue with the anthropologist, and they're going to say, no, my version is the right way to do it. So this is really my next project in this particular series. It's another poem, but it really illustrates one of the most fascinating aspects of the Endangered Alphabets Project, which is that writing itself is fluid, dynamic, expressive. We think of it as being stable and universal. That really isn't the case. It changes all the time. And as soon as the firm grip of authority, whether it be governmental authority or school book authority, as soon as that's relaxed, then it's as if there's an alphabet soup that gets sort of diluted and everything begins to drift further and further apart. Different people use letters differently and write letters differently, and there's no consistency anymore. And what I've written is just really a best faith effort that says, no, this is probably not as authentic as it could be, in the same way that this piece of bamboo is not actually cylindrical. But it's an effort to try and draw your attention to the fact that these scripts do exist, they're worth studying, and frankly, they're worth preserving.